Hello and welcome to today's video. My name's Haley, and today is part 2 of 2 of the shadow frequency of dullness within this 15th gene key. So if you haven't watched part 1, that's the most recent video prior to this one on the channel. I recommend watching that, seeing as though this continues that thought loop. The last thing we left off in that video was talking about attitude and how it's about the attitude that an individual embodies that paints the world and the reality that they therefore experience. I noted how if you change your hormones or your brain chemistry, you can change your attitude because they're linked together. And on that note, he also says it is how you interpret those changes that dictates your attitude. And by that, he means it's how you interpret your environment, how you perceive your environment, how you take in your environment that dictates your attitude. This is kind of circular, I feel. We're kind of just saying the same thing: attitude, perception, viewing. All these words are very slightly different, but for the most part, you can exchange them. But the moment your perspective shifts, whether it's because of inner or outer light, Richard Rudd says, and you could sub the word light here for awareness. So the moment perception shifts, whether because of an inner awareness or an outer awareness that's brewing, the feeling of dullness can actually become incredibly exciting and vibrant. Really? And okay, so I read this and I thought, oh man, that is a brilliant line that no one is going to believe. Unless, of course, you who's watching this has experienced a moment where, whether it was kind of a holy instant where you became aware due to an inner awareness, or a holy instant where you became aware due to an outer awareness, where dullness actually transmuted into something incredibly exciting and vibrant. And my first memory of this happening to me, which is how I know it's true, was when I think I must have been like 14. Yeah, probably like 14. And I went on a run and I got what they call a runner's high, which is essentially just a release of endorphins that you can get from moving the body. And specifically, running long durations can bring it about. And I remember as I'm getting home from my run, I just felt so naturally high. So you could say that it was due to an outer awareness, right? It's because I went on the run that the release of endorphins flooded my system. And in a moment, I saw a flower, these flowers that are outside my bedroom window when I'm 14 that I see all the time. And for whatever reason, probably because the endorphins were flooding, I became so aware for the first time of the beauty of the flower. And flowers that had always been, nonchalant, not necessarily anything eye-catching. It's just like your regular California flower, the kind that they paint the streets with, really, really caught my attention. And I remember just having like a moment where I merged with the flower, which sounds kind of crazy, right? And my mom actually walked into the room and she said some things, Haley, we're going to realized I wasn't listening. She's like, Haley. And she's like, what are you doing? And I was just like staring at this flower, super enamored. And yeah, you could say that what usually didn't catch the eye, which is these flowers outside my bedroom window, all of a sudden became extremely exciting and vibrant because of an awareness shift, which again, I could peg onto the fact that because I went on a run, I had an endorphin flush, which brought me about a new level of awareness. Whether it's inner or outer, it doesn't really matter. The point is, when you have a new perception, a new viewing point, you actually see the world differently. Even things you see every day, even things outside of your bedroom window that don't seem monumental or phenomenal, will actually be painted in a new, exciting, and vibrant light. And so this is something to get excited about, right? As we elevate from the shadow frequency of dullness and into the gift frequency of magnetism, everything you view starts to look magnetic. vibrant, colorful, exciting, fluorescent, like kind of like it's breathing. If you've ever taken psilocybin, or what they call magic mushrooms, then this is kind of the perception he's talking about, that you can begin to view the world in without taking psilocybin. Truly, truly, truly. So I like that he brings that up within this shadow frequency chapter. The exact moment your perception shifts, whether because of inner or outer light or awareness, the feeling of dullness can actually become something incredibly exciting and vibrant. He describes dullness for us. He says, dullness is based upon the lack of magnetism or polarity. So this is how it's linked to the gift of magnetism. Dullness is the lack of magnetism. Just like cold is the lack of heat, right? It's all on one spectrum, one temperature scale. You have heat going this way, or I'll put it this way. You have heat going this way, and you have the 0 point, right? 0 degrees Celsius here. And cold is just lack of heat. In that same way, you can think about dullness and magnetism. It's a scale of magnetism, and as you go down, there's a lack of magnetism, which we call dullness. There's a lack of heat, which we call cold. He says dullness has no polarity at all. No charge. And again, returning to that story I just told you, every day up until that point, I used to walk by those flowers on the way to my room, look out the window, very passively observe, not consciously, right? And it's not like they made me be like, ew, ugh, ugh. It's also not like I was like excited, oh my gosh, they're so beautiful. They just had no effect on me. There was no polarity, no charge. I didn't feel any sort of way about these flowers until I had that shift in awareness and they became magnetic and I was drawn to them and the vibrancy was released. And so this is something important to note about dullness. There's no polarity, there's no charge. It's kind of just like nonchalant is the best word I can think of right now. Just like, it's not good, it's not bad. I don't hate it, I don't love it, I like it. It's whatever. Just like no reaction. Polarity is never dull. Herein lies the rub, he says. Polarity is never dull. Okay. So dullness has no polarity, and polarity is never dull. So this is kind of a head warp now. We're getting into monkey territory here with the mind. Rage is not dull. Violence is not dull. Only the lack of any charge, positive or negative, is dull. And this is true, right? The 0 point on the scale, once again referring to temperature. 0 is down here, but actually there's more scale to go, right? 0 is not the end. There's negative degrees, right? You can have -5 in New York City, which is a nightmare with the snow. So the 0 point is not the end all be all. There's a scale that keeps going. And that is where the negativity, where the charge, where the polarity is experienced. At the 0 point, dullness, there is no polarity, there is no charge. And again, I think I mentioned this in the last video. Another term that comes to mind is this word apathetic, which is the lack of feeling anything. It's just like, not super happy, not super sad, just like this is the best way I can describe it is through my hands and my facial expressions right now. He says all the shadow states at their core have the same dullness. Shadows themselves only emerge according to how we respond to the dullness. So this is really interesting, right? Because all of the shadow states that we've gone over thus far and are about to go over in the following chapters, all of the shadow states have this resonance of dullness. Wait a second. So that means that they all have no polarity, no charge, no negativity. And that's funny, right? Because you think about the past shadows we've gone over, which I'll just quickly run through. Entropy, dislocation, chaos, intolerance, impatience, conflict, division, mediocrity, inertia, self-obsession, obscurity, vanity, discord, compromise. None of those are negative. All of those have a lack of polarity. And this is true. It's how he says it here. It's how we respond to the compromise, how we respond to the discord, how we respond to the conflict or the chaos or the intolerance, I could go on. That creates the negative polarity, the negative charge, the awful feelings, and the low vibrations that are emitted once we start to engage and entangle with the shadow. The shadow in and of itself has zero polarity, zero charge, and is actually at more of a frequency of apathy than anything. So once again, it depends on how you respond to the dullness. That either drives it down into a negative polarity, which is like sadness, grief, anger, fear. Or if you respond in a higher way, you can actually transmute dullness to have a positive polarity, one of bliss, joy, etc. And the way in which you do that, he says, is dependent upon how deeply you allow the dullness to sink in. If you embrace the dullness, you don't push it away or get annoyed at it or aggravated at it or sad about it, then it has the opportunity to rise into magnetism, into the gift frequency. So you can kind of think of it like this. Dullness is a piece of bread, and it depends what condiment you put on top of it that gives the bread the flavor. The bread in and of itself is pretty neutral tasting. If you put raspberry jam, now it tastes like raspberry jam. If you put anger on top of your apathy, now it tastes like anger. Inversely, if you put salted butter on top of the bread, now it tastes like salted butter. If you put embrace over the top of the bread, now it tastes like embrace. Do you get the point? It depends on which condiment, the way in which you respond, that actually makes the bread have a certain flavor or vibration or polarity. I've been thinking about bread a lot recently because I'm in France eating lots of bread with a little bread monster. They have great bread here, great butter, and we were just talking about how amazing bread and butter is, so I guess that's why this analogy has popped into my head. But yes, in embracing the dullness, in putting the nice salted butter on the bread, it becomes mystical. It gets transmuted into a positive polarity, a more heart-based consciousness. He notes that we often get stuck at the level of mind. Yeah. And that most people will do something, anything, to distract from this dullness, because this lack of feeling actually ignites a lot of fear in most people. I can attest to that. And if you who's watching this is curious about this dullness, and you're like, oh, I don't think I've ever experienced that, or are you sure? No, I think I could coast with dullness if it's zero charge. Try putting your phone in a drawer for a whole day. And that means every waiting room you're in, you can't scroll to fill the time. Every time you're waiting at a street lamp, you can't scroll to pass the time. When you go on a walk, you're not listening to a podcast, no music, not on a phone call. It's in these moments throughout the day where we're actually meant to be embracing dullness that we're actually filling with distraction, usually in the form of a cell phone, sometimes in the form of physical company, or a book or a TV show or the radio. Any and all form of stimulation that is external of the self is distracting an individual from dullness out of a subconscious fear of dullness. And this is a unconscious resistance, right? Which builds up a negative charge. But if you could allow the dullness to permeate as it naturally wants to throughout the day, not filling every single second of your precious time and energy with stimulation and distraction, it would actually cease to be dull. You would enter into that exciting vibrancy that I talked about as I experienced with the flower. Oh, so interesting. Like I've mentioned before that I read these chapters like a while ago, and then I'm probably reading like chapter 20 now. And then I make these videos much later, but I completely forgot that the 15th gene key's acidic state is called fluorescence. And there's a note here. It says, if you can allow the dullness to permeate your entire being without getting reactionary, without being scared of it, or angry at it, or whatever, putting a condiment on there that ignites this, it will actually cease to be dull, and you'll experience it and grow at even higher levels as a flowering conscious known as fluorescence. Well, I think it's pretty ironic that I just told you guys a story about a flower, and I completely forgot the acidic state was called fluorescence. That's a nice synchronicity. So I guess the first, I'm gonna call it a dare because it's not really a contemplation. The first dare of this video is I dare you to tango with dullness. I gave you the idea of locking your phone in a cabinet for a whole day. See if you can do that. If you can't do that because you have a 9 to 5 or whatever other excuse you come up with, whether it's valid or not, try doing it for an hour. Everyone watching this can lock their phone into a cabinet for an hour and do nothing. And again, lock the phone up, don't turn on the TV, don't turn on the radio, don't try to call a friend or hang out with someone, just literally sit on the couch and do nothing. Look around, see what comes up in your thoughts. Meditate with your eyes open, for lack of better words. And something he doesn't mention here that I will mention because I'm familiar with meditation, whether the eyes are open or closed. If you've never done this before and you start to flirt with this concept of being content in the present moment, embracing dullness, you will find that at first it is extremely, extremely uncomfortable. And this is because it's something you've never done before and your body's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. It's 3 p.m. Usually at 3 p.m. I'm really busy distracting myself. So I'd actually rather be doing that. And your body's trying to drag you back to your regular routine. So keep that in mind if you do engage in this activity and you're never tried to. I just don't want to let that discourage you because there is a hump to get over before your body realizes it's not dying, and just because it's not on its regular routine doesn't mean something alarming is going on. And truly there is a moment where that excitement and vibrancy will flower, as he mentions. And when that is, I cannot promise you or tell you when. It's dependent upon the individual, how much they've resisted dullness throughout their life, and how much they're actually able to embrace the nothingness of this activity. So I dare you, try meditating with your eyes open or closed and embracing dullness. It doesn't take a process to move from the shadow to the city. He reminds us, it's simply a matter of pure acceptance. And so, yeah, that's true. Again, don't try to understand this with your logical mind, analyze it, and figure out. it's never going to make any sense because it's not meant to make any sense up here. It's just meant to be internalized in here. And truly, in reality, all three states, the shadow, the gift, and the city, are all present, all here right now, all really the same thing. And the reason for the division and the explanation is for the purpose of creative expression, called the gene keys. But he throws us a nice little oneness reminder there. And yeah, he reminds us this because the actual experience of the flower, whether I pass by it unconsciously or I actually get caught up in the presence of it and have such an excitingly vibrant experience, the actual experience of the flower is the same. It's my perception that has shifted. It's my choosing a different level, you could say. But nothing's actually changed. And in order to accept the oneness of the shadow, the gift, and the acidic state, you have to live it totally. You have to be genuinely desiring to understand the oneness of it all. So yeah, he kind of goes on a little oneness tangent towards the end. And then he wraps it up with his usual, going over the repressive and the reactive natures of dullness. The repressive nature is emptiness. And this is very different than boredom. There's kind of a restlessness to emptiness, and it's very close to depression. Repression rhymes with depression. All repressive states are a drain of energy. He says at some point, this person has given up and they've resigned from life. Not only their job, from life. This person feels empty with everything. Doesn't matter if their loved one comes home, they feel empty. It doesn't matter if someone brings them their favorite gift, they feel empty. It doesn't matter if they even get their dream job, they feel empty. They've resigned their joy from all areas of life. Whew, even saying that is depressing. And this is a fear-based nature, as are all repressive states. And these people are afraid of fear itself. So it's a fractal of fear. They're putting fear jam on their neutral tasting bread. They're afraid of the dullness. They can only escape when they discover that fear is the block. The fact that they're scared of the dullness is the only thing keeping them in this cycle, in this fractal of fear. So that takes, once again, a perception shift. They have to learn not to be afraid of whatever they're experiencing, but instead accept it, which, yeah, I know how flowery that is. They need to allow this primordial emptiness to saturate them entirely. And then a great surge of energy and vitality is released. So if you've ever been through a dark night of the soul, which is something I've mentioned multiple times on this channel, you'll know that there is points in which you have just like this dread, this horrible dread of like, oh my God, I feel so pointless, like I have no purpose, I have no energy, like what the hell's wrong with me? And I would say it actually correlates to this repressive shadow frequency of emptiness. And in my own experience, I can say that this great surge of energy and vitality is released. And for me, it was also coincided with crying, shaking, sometimes screaming, punching my pillow. It was kind of like I was so empty for such a long time, and then out of nowhere, sadness came out, anger came out, and it was kind of like life got restored back to me. So I think I have experienced this repressive nature before. And the reactive nature, extremist, I've definitely experienced that before. So this is also a reminder you can experience both the repressive and the reactive nature at different points in time, maybe even the same point in time. So yeah, it's not like you're either one or the other. So the reactive nature of dullness is being extreme, rebelling against this apathy. I'm fine, hey, I'm fine. It's kind of like a brushing over. Instead of looking at the bread that has no condiment, you're like, no, it has a condiment, we're all good. And you eat it and you pretend there's raspberry jam on it. This is kind of what this person is doing. They so much don't accept the lack of flavor in this plain piece of bread, and they escape the fear of it or the resistance towards it through denial. So yeah, this person isn't actually experiencing reality. They're scared of the reality, and therefore they're creating one so much in their mind that they're living more out of that projection than what's actually here right now. And the extremists can find themselves in lots of crazy situations because, once again, they're not observing reality. They are in a fantasy world because reality scares them or angers them or triggers them, whatever. And they're living from this fantasy while still in the real world. So they can get themselves into lots of strange situations, which I have done. And they have no real sense of passion. They're always on the move, never really able to commit to anything or anyone. And it's because, once again, they're running away from their own shadows. They're running away from reality. They're always up here. And it's only when the individual chooses to place their attention back here, which they've been ignoring and pushing away for quite a long time, and see that the bread has no condiment on it, that they start to see through their patterns of reaction and begin to start to embrace and accept their reality. The bread has no condiment, and I need to choose a condiment to put on there. This bread analogy really did me good. Okay, so yeah, that is the whole shadow of dullness. That was actually more interesting than I thought it would be. Stay tuned for the gift of magnetism in the next video. Hey guys, thanks again for tuning in with me for this Gene Keys episode. I also just wanted to come on here and start promoting my one-to-one coaching that I offer to women and girls ages 16 to 35. If you've followed me on Instagram for a while, you might be a little bit familiar with my story. I was a model in New York City for 5 years, and in that time frame, I did quite some damage. I developed a really severe eating disorder, body dysmorphia, chronic anxiety. Oh my gosh, I couldn't even go out to dinner without thinking about how much calories, how much I'd have to overwork out in order to compensate for what I was eating. All of those issues led to quite a depression and turned into PCOS, and I also lost my menstrual cycle for over 5 years. All of this amalgamation of issues led me to soon realize that something needed to change. I went through much work. Many people helped me to get to where I am now. And I'm so thrilled to say I'm living such a more abundant life, and I don't feel zapped and drained and fear of judgment anymore like I used to. I would love to offer what I've learned through my own embodied experience, the meditative techniques that have gravitated toward me, and the own verified games that I've made up and curated to help you walk home to more of you and who you really are, so that all of these things can stop draining your energy. You know, all the constant comparison to others and to your people on Instagram, all the over-analysis about working out and what you're eating or what you look like. All of these things are not what life's about, as cheesy as it sounds. And I would love to help you come into more unity with you if you struggle with any of these things and you're a woman or girl between the ages of 16 and 35. So feel free to reach out to me if one-on-one coaching sounds resonant. You can feel free to DM me through Instagram or contact me via email, both of which will be left below in the description box. So much love and aloha to you guys, and I'll see you all in the next video.